Hello there. My name's Mark, and you're listening to episode 52 of the Holocron Chronicles. I am joined, as always, by my trusty co-pilot. 'Tis the season for droids. Wookiee Life Day. I don't know what you're celebrating exactly, Charlie, but you seem to be in the spirit. Charlie, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. We're lodged between Life Day, either the Canadian or the U.S. version, which I brought up on Discord today. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And whatever the hell, Christmas, Xmas, Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa, whatever it is you want to call it. Anyway, it's early December, and this shirt had been on a shelf for a couple of years or on a hanger, and I was like, that plus this sweater that I can't wear because I have the fire going in the fireplace, and I've been drinking coffee because it's a late record in my Rebel mug.
Nice.
So I thought, I'll get in, and if I wear this again next time to get the maximum mileage out of it, because it's still December, deal with it. It's okay.
Absolutely. And we are joined by a returning guest. Hasn't been around in a minute, but we're super happy to have him back. That is Dano from the Dano channel. Dano.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me back, man. It's been too long. It's been way too long.
Thanks for coming back. Yeah, it has been too long. It's one of those things we keep saying. We get people back every once in a while, and we do this show bi-weekly. So we try to get new guests, try to get some returning guests, and it piles up very quickly. So it's awesome when we can get some great people back. And cool. And a little behind the scenes stuff for people listening. Your episode, even though it was recorded back in 2021 or released back in 2021, was our top episode on Spotify this year. So people really like you. They really like Galaxy's Edge. And I thought it was a great time to bring you back.
It's definitely Galaxy's Edge. Now, I think back in 2021 when we recorded, you hadn't been yet, right?
I had just been.
You had just been. That's what it was.
We went in September, so we recorded in April. So it was still pretty fresh. But I hadn't been to when I was there. Rise of the Resistance wasn't even open. So you kind of recapped that whole thing for me. And so we're gonna get into Galaxy's Edge a little bit. But first, I want to hear about you. But before even that, I do want to thank Manscaped for sponsoring the Holocron Chronicles and the Secret Friends Unite Network across the board. Right now, you can save 20% and get free shipping at manscaped.com with the code SFU. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to the audio podcast, or if you're watching this video, you just came for the first time, hit that subscribe button and check us out. With that all out of the way, Dano, like I said, it's been a while. So I want to ask a few questions about your Star Wars origin story. And the first one has to be, how'd you get into Star Wars?
Oh, this is a fun one. Accidentally, kind of.
Accidentally? Oh, my goodness. I slipped and fell in Star Wars.
Kind of. Like, I was actually resistant to it as a child. I was gifted the THX box set of VHSs back in the mid-90s.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Christmas present my mom got for me, thinking I would like it. And me being a snotty kid was like, yeah, I don't want that crap. And I didn't. No. And I know. And to look at me now, and just to be like, what an awful child I was. So it sat in a closet for months, probably 6 to 7 months, because it was sometime, I believe, over the next summer. It might have even been a year and like 6 months. But it sat there for a while in a closet until one day the family went to church and I decided not to go. I stayed home.
Oh, heathen.
I know. And I was flipping through channels, and it happened to be like a Sunday where they were playing Star Wars that weekend on USA. And
so every weekend, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, back then it was a little more rare back then. We're talking like 96, summer of 96.
Yeah, before the special editions, yeah.
Exactly, right before the special editions. So I happen to be flipping channels, and I see this snow-covered land and this little creature running across, making weird noises. It happens to be a tauntaun. I'm like, okay, what is this? And I'm just like, I get sucked in instantly. And as I'm watching it, I'm kind of like, oh, this is Yoda. I know that, I've heard of Yoda. Right. I've heard of, and the I Am Your Father stuff with Vader. I'm like, oh, okay, I get the references. I've seen Tommy Boy. Like there's all that kind of stuff. Like the cultural references were in my head of Star Wars.
Right.
But I didn't know what Star Wars
was. I always say the same thing. Right. Yeah. So I'm 38, like just turned 38. And I always said, I always say on the show, like it was just part of life. Like
Yeah,
I had a Star
you knew
Wars
the
toothbrush.
references.
Like I had a Luke Skywalker toothbrush before I really watched movies. Like it was just always there.
It's
Right.
one of
So
the
like,
things I had forgotten until like more recently was growing up. I used to love the Ewok movies. I was like 4 years old, and we would rent movies, and I would request either the Ewok movies or this dinosaur movie called Baby. And those were like my two go-to rentals as like a 4 and 5 year old. And I had
That's
no idea until later that I was like, oh, I guess I did like Star Wars younger.
It's so weird because you watch those Ewok movies and it's like, all right, this is some Muppet shit, right? It's just there's no connective tissue because even you got Wilford Brimley and his broken down ship or whatever, but there's nothing that says, oh, and he's got like a poster of the Rebel, he's using a Rebel coffee cup. You know what I mean? There's no connective tissue. There's, by the way, if you on YouTube, Rebel coffee cup. But yeah. Just no, like and subscribe, and a 20% off at Manscaped with SFU. But yeah, there's you're right, no connective tissue. So yeah, you must have just been like, oh, did you? How did that make you? How did that make you feel?
So I didn't realize the connection going back further until like more recently, within the last like I don't know 5-6 years. I went back and was like, oh my god, I remember that when I was little. Same thing. I found a picture where there's the Rancor from the 80s in my like bedroom as a child, and I had no idea I had the Rancor. Oh, I was like, what? I had that? And I'm like, I vaguely do remember playing with that, but I had no idea it was Star Wars. So I didn't really get into it until like 96 when that movie hit. Right. And then the next day or whatever, I think it was the next week, they were playing more the next weekend, and it happened to be A New Hope. And so I sat through and I was like, oh, cool, more of this? Sweet. And I sat through, watched A New Hope, watched Return of the Jedi, and I was hooked like instantly.
Right.
And so from then, there was Star Wars CCG that was out, like kind of like Magic the Gathering, but a Star Wars card game. And so I really got into that. And just, not even playing it, just collecting the cards and reading the little minutia about all the little aliens and, learning who Boshek is in the cantina or Kit Kat, all these weird little aliens.
That was around
I learned so much about Star Wars through that card game.
That was around the time too that we got the Tales from Jabba's Palace, which was the big novel, and then Mark. We should do an episode about this. It just occurred to me: the Shadows of the Empire, the media event of the summer of 1996 that had everything but a movie. Oh my god!
We need that movie.
Yeah,
like that's
animated because I mean,
I don't care how I get it. I want it. I want it.
Right.
But so I got in like right. I got in right before, like a year before special edition changes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was there were no prequels yet. So as far as I knew, when I got into Star Wars, that was it. There was these 3 weird movies, 4, 5, and 6, and that's it. And it was just like, why is it 4 or 5? And nobody knew. No, we had no idea prequels were coming. We had no idea this is what it was going to be like in 2022 with so much Star Wars. Like, I wish I could go back and tell like little Dano back then, you have no idea what your life is going to become.
Get your act together, dummy.
This one Sunday morning is going to rule your life some 30 years later. Like,
but also don't read the Young Jedi Academy books because they will not matter.
Right. Yeah. None of what you read back then will.
No, because that was me. Like I jumped in to the movies, and my aunt got me hooked on the movies, and then it was kind of the same thing of like there's no prequels yet, there's no, but like the sequels kind of lived on through the book, so I like absorbed those Jedi Academy books, Jason and Jaina and
Lobaka, right?
Exactly. Fantastic. And then that's kind of done away with, but what I do want to ask, what is your, after that very weird origin and going back and forth and jumping around there, what's your favorite Star Wars property? Usually I say movie or show, but I've been kind of changing this one to be like property. Is it a book, game? What's Star Wars to you?
I have a terrible time with favorites. It's like a whole thing on my channel, like my live streams. It's the number one question that gets asked. It's the number one question I don't answer because I have to dance around it. So, and I noticed you put favorite is like some of the questions for the notes here, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. we're just going to go with it.
That's because I also can't pick favorites. So
It's
if someone
hard.
asks me my favorite character, I'm like, oh, Luke,
Hard.
Din, Cal
Changes
Kestis,
every time.
Obi-Wan. It changes by the
It
day.
depends on
by
what
the
I just
minute.
watched. Whatever I just watched, that's my favorite.
They're all
but so
great.
if I
They're
had to
all
pick,
great.
they really are, and it kind of does, like what I was just saying. Whatever I just watched is my favorite. Like right now, I'm super hyped on Andor still.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're in the right place.
Super fresh.
Episode to
So
jump in.
you know, like if you ask me right now, but see, the second you brought up Shadows of the Empire, now I'm thinking, oh, was Shadows of the Empire my favorite? Because I love that whole multimedia event.
We might have to string back to have you back, and maybe sometime before we get a new show that we have a Shadows of the Empire special that we just talk about.
You know what? I've been wanting to do that on my channel. For a while. Play through the game, talk about the book, the comics, the collectible trading cards. I have every single toy unopened that I want to actually unbox and open on the channel. Like just do a whole 2 or 3 weeks of nothing but Shadows of the Empire, but nobody but like the weirdos are going to watch.
It's such a gag going back to the beginning of Secret Friends Unite, which actually started in the summer of '96. And it was a whole thing that we were breaking down the loft in the dorm room that I shared with our friend John, and Todd lived across the hall. And the word Secret Friends got scrolled on one of the pieces of wood, and I don't even know how it happened, and Todd drew a little hard under it. And then it was the thing between us. And then Shadows of the Empire came out, and all the action figures became the big joke.
Dash Rendar.
Dash Rendar was the Kmart Han Solo. That was what John dubbed him. And he always, and Kmart is even an archaic reference because there's like 2 of them left in the world.
I think literally 2. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. I'm going to get off my Shadows of the Empire soapbox. But Mark, I'm telling you.
You guys do have the Prince Shizor statue. That's like your running statue. You guys trade back and forth, right?
Yeah, I don't have it anymore. That is our prize for our summer movie wager. I lost to John this summer, so it is in Washington State right now. But I'm going to win it back to Michigan because John and I have shared it for the last 8 years, and Todd has never won, which we got to keep it that way.
Amazing. Favorite. I know I'm going to keep saying favorite, but you can rhyme off a few.
Yeah.
What characters stand out for you? Let's phrase it that way.
So I usually lean towards Han Solo or Lando or Poe.
Nice.
Because he's kind of in a similar way.
Right.
So I would go with those 3. That's like the trifecta.
The trifecta of rogues. Yes.
Yeah.
Great choices. Light side or dark side?
Light side. Always light side.
Hell yeah.
That one's easy.
Yes. light meat or dark meat? Stick with the light.
You'd be so surprised how not easy that question is. Yeah, we get so often like, oh, I want to say light side, but force lightning's really cool. You know, and I never I don't like letting people pick gray.
Because it's a cop out, right?
Right. Yeah.
Super cop out. I mean, because
especially since High Republic, you can say light side with some quirks. Because like the High Republic allows people to explore the light side in their own various ways rather than the staunch, like this is the Jedis of the prequels, right? So so I'll accept that answer, but like you come at me with gray Jedi, I'm gonna make you dive deeper into that. I know you've built several. So this is kind of how I found you was lightsabers and the Galaxy's Edge stuff. And I know you've built every lightsaber imaginable. But what is your lightsaber color of choice? What one do you go back to?
Purple.
I
go purple. Yeah. I didn't know for a while that it was purple. I always thought I was a blue or green person, but then I kind of noticed, and actually people in my comments on my videos started pointing out like, no, dude, you're purple. And like people who like crafters who make stuff and send me custom items, they started like sending me more purple stuff. And I was like, am I a purple person? And I kind of look back at some of my old videos and I guess I am. I do tend to like always just lean towards purple. So
I am noticing also the purple light.
Oh, even the light. I know.
Right now, it's kind of foreshadowing this conversation. So purple, I like that. That's really good. And you're one of, I think maybe 2 or 3 people that have said purple, if that.
Oh, wow.
I think very few. So it's
rare breed.
It is very rare. And I always appreciate the purple lightsaber users, especially the ones that instantly say light side, because that is even more rare. Usually the people who say purple are
A mix.
Light
They're the great
side, but a
Jedi people.
little dark side. You know, they
Right.
Yeah.
want to kind of go in that. You're like staunchly like light side,
Yeah.
but also purple. Which,
Right.
if you like lightsaber lore, you kind of know that
Right.
means you're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
leaning a little bit.
Now,
So
even
that's
I did my first Twi'lek cosplay, Twi'lek, however you want to say it.
Oh yeah.
My first Twi'lek cosplay this year, purple. Also
right.
purple.
Really, the purple
Never seen
Leku.
that.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like
purple
it.
Leku. Yeah.
Yep. That's your jam. All right. I like it. Last question. Favorite affiliation?
Ooh.
Jedi, bounty hunters, Ewoks, Wookiees,
Well, now that you
Rebels.
throw in Ewoks,
He's gonna be
Wait,
an
well, I
Ewok
had to throw in
rogue.
Ewoks because
Ewok bounty hunter
the
rogue.
Ewok movies.
yeah, if we're gonna throw in Ewoks, and we can go all over the place.
Space
Pod
pirates.
racers? Are pod racers an affiliation?
Absolutely. That's what I mean.
You know,
like
then I'm gonna go with pod racers. I will
right.
definitely
All
pick
right,
pod racers.
Ewok rogue pod racer. I'm into
That's it. That's it.
That is our first pod racer for sure. Most people will go with like kind of those established. I love the pod race.
I would
pod
say
racing?
Resistance normally, but like I love pod racing. I want a pod racing movie. I want like I'm definitely stuck in the N64 era of Shadows of the Empire in pod racing, and I will not leave that era. And so I want all of that stuff to come back so bad. So give me pod racing movie, give me Shadows of the Empire.
Those are the most god awful levels on any of the Lego Star Wars games. Which, by the way, I'm not a gamer, but those are the only games I play. Those are just you got to keep doing the you didn't go fast enough. You got to do it again. And then when you go back to get the mini kit, and then you got to be like, this one's up here, and
the actual like pod racing game though, like they re-released it for Switch and all new systems.
Yeah.
Those later levels are intense. It is really good. Like I have the replica Anakin pod racer helmet. I'll sit in my living room in my gaming chair, put the helmet on, and sit there and like play and be like, in the middle of the night and just love it and just get wrecked by these insane courses. Yeah. It's like the dorkiest, most fun I can possibly have. So yeah, affiliation
later levels
pod racer.
I like that. So okay, that's the first time I've heard pod racer, so I got to dive into that. What's your like pod racer movie pitch? If you had like pitch the
Days
movie
of Thunder. Give me Days of Thunder.
Oh man,
but pod racing.
All right,
but not Tom Cruise. No,
but not Tom Cruise. I don't know who exactly would play, but I want like shot in the same kind of style as Days of Thunder. But I want like just straight up racing movie. Give me that genre. But Star Wars, we're already with Andor experimenting and a little bit different. They're getting outside of the box, not just Jedi and pew pew, whatever. It's a bit more serious. We got a different tone. Let's go a different direction too. Like, give me all the Star Wars, not just the same stuff over and over. Give me a racing movie.
Nice.
Just about pod racing. Like, the whole thing.
Man. Yep.
Good deal.
I love that. We've been saying that, I think, for quite a while now. Give us different movie. Charlie and I, we want that Top Gun kind of Rogue One, the X-Wing movie that's supposed to happen kind of on hold.
Also not with Tom Cruise, even though I mean he can bring $1 billion movie. So but still this doesn't need to be his entry into Star Wars. Forget about it.
So we want.
But Top Gun 2 was pretty much Star Wars, anyways. Like it was basically the same.
Yeah, the trench run, and the
trench run, exactly. It was the same thing.
Yeah, and there was 6 meter hole. Yeah, exactly, or 2 meter hole. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that Fast and Furious 11, they're just going to go in pod racing. You're going to get Vin Diesel just living his life one pod race mile at a time.
Oh my gosh.
Family,
that's how it's all about family.
It's going to turn into Sharknado. Watch out.
There's going to be dinosaurs and it's going to be in space. It's going to be crazy.
Ooh, I would watch that.
Written in crayon by a 5-year-old. Watch out.
Yep. That just sounds like dumb fun, man. That's some good stuff. So I can't not ask you about Galaxy's Edge. Because that's a lot of kind of what you're known for. That's how I found you.
That's my jam.
There's some new stuff happening in Galaxy's Edge, especially out in the West Coast where you are.
Yeah.
We already talked a little bit about the new pommels that just came out. There's been a few of those.
We did that off air.
Oh, that was off air, right?
Yeah,
so
it was off air. So.
The last video I watched was the pommels, and there's some hilarious typos on these. If you'd like to share for anyone listening.
Yeah, for any listeners who maybe haven't been to Galaxy's Edge, there's a thing called Savi's Workshop where you can build lightsabers. And for the YouTube viewers, I'm showing one on camera. It's one of the newer ones, and they're these modular,
nice.
lightsabers. You've got switches, sleeves, pommels, and emitters, and you can switch out the pieces and build them. It's like $250 now. It's really expensive, and you get a blade, you get the whole thing in a show. In the creature stall on Batu, they sell these little pommels that are like carvings of different creatures. They've got banthas, lothcats, rancors, convors. But a couple weeks back, they just released 2 new creature pommels that work with those lightsabers: Kowakian monkey lizard and a crate dragon. These are really cool, ornate carvings of the creatures that you can attach to the bottom of the lightsaber. And they have Arabesh engraved into the metal ring on the bottom. But this is the second time they've had major mistakes. There's a but. So back in, I want to say May the 4th, May of this last year, sometime this summer, they released a bantha, and there was a major typo on the bantha. It actually says banthb, B-A-N-T-H-B. So not bantha, B-A-N-T-H-B. And so it's like, how could that happen? This is Disney we're talking about. And they
it was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey, Mr. Burns.
But they didn't learn from their mistake, because the Kowakian monkey lizard actually says crate dragon in Arabesh on the back. And the crate dragon actually says spider monkey on the back, not monkey lizard like the other one. So it wasn't even a clean swap. It was a completely wrong word, spider monkey, on the back of the crate dragon. So I don't know if these are collector's pieces, if they're going to fix them in the future or what, but I think it's hilarious when they do stuff like that. I love it.
You had one job, buddy.
Yeah,
one job.
Not only is it wrong, but it's wrong. That is fantastic.
Yeah. It's just like double wrong.
Holy shit!
It's wrong.
Wow. And you did mention Savvy's Workshop. So my Saber original from 2 weeks after Galaxy's Edge opened is back there.
And so they've been refreshed. You have a Elemental Nature, right? Yeah. So the new ones haven't come out. What I've got on screen for the YouTube viewers, this is new Protection and Defense. These just came out a couple weeks ago. So since 2019, when Galaxy's Edge opened, they've had the same 4 themes, and they still have the same 4 themes. But at Celebration this past year, they said they're going to refresh them. So as of right now, Protection and Defense is brand new pieces, and Peace and Justice are brand new pieces. We're waiting on Power and Control, and we're waiting on Elemental Nature to show up, which could happen any day now.
Wow. So, exciting.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on the Dano channel.
Oh, yeah.
For more, because you always
I need to make a trip out there and get the new Peace and Justice. I don't have those yet, but I have all of the Protection and Defense.
Awesome.
Yeah. Defense against the dark arts. I love it.
There you go. In addition to that, though, recently Mandalorian and Grogu showed up at Galaxy's Edge, which is kind of a weird thing for me, because Galaxy's Edge is supposed to be locked into a specific time. It's supposed to be this moment between Episode 8 and Episode 9, which is why you have Kylo Ren walking around the way he is with his. Even that doesn't totally make sense, because his helmet was destroyed after 8. But whatever, we let that go. He has his helmet and he's back on Batu. That's fine. But now they're introducing other characters. Earlier in the year, we got to see Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. And the way they explained it,
it's weird.
Even though it's the wrong timeline, though, it's kind of funny, because they're years earlier, but they're walking around Batu, and then maybe on the other side of the land, you've got Rey, who's from a completely different time zone, walking around. And it kind of kills the immersion, but the way they explained it is, imagine that when these characters show up, they're in their own little like story bubble. Like there's a little bubble of time that you're witnessing. When you see them walking around the outpost, Boba Fett and Fennec, you're witnessing an older time that's not the same time as the other land. Like, that's kind of a weird way of thinking about it.
That's very here it comes, my Star Trek reference. That's very Star Trek. Well,
it's a
disruption in the space-time continuum. Yes, absolutely.
But they decided to run with it so they could allow Mandalorian and Grogu to show up.
Right. Which is that's smart from a marketing standpoint.
It is smart. Like, as much as
popular.
I love the Galaxy's Edge timeline where it is. I'm one of the few people who really likes that era right after Last Jedi, but before Rise of Skywalker. Like, for me, that's one of my preferred timelines in Star Wars. But this allows them to venture out and still give people who don't like that timeline what they want with other characters. Right. So these are just the first 2, and it's only been since May. So who knows if that opens the doors to others. We know Anakin visited Batu at some point. Thrawn visited at some point in the books. So I wonder if maybe they make an appearance in the future. I don't know. Like if
And
they're
they're
playing with timelines,
in their own little time bubble.
yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting.
why not?
And
Why not?
if you've played Vader Immortal,
Oh yeah,
or not Vader Immortal, sorry,
the
the
Galaxy's
Galaxy's
Edge.
Edge VR
Yeah, yeah.
game. Sorry, the other
Tales
name's
from
completely escaped.
Galaxy's
Tales
Edge,
from
I
the
think.
Galaxy's Edge, I think, right? So that like that one, you actually do in that game, like you explore in real time in the time that's in the game, but you also talk to a bartender and he kind of recants these tales of the time where there was a Jedi there and Yoda had to come and save someone's ass.
Yeah,
And there's the so it is kind of like if you've jumped in that VR game and enjoyed it, that kind of explanation makes sense. And I didn't know that I actually wanted to ask you about that explanation. So that for me somehow makes it better because it's
I
like I'm
like it now.
talking
Like I can
to
accept it now. I wasn't sure how they were going to pull that off, but once I heard that explanation, I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? Okay, okay, I'll allow
Right.
it. You know, it's
until
like this makes sense now.
until Boba Fett has a dance off with Kylo Ren,
But
and
the thing is, they're so good about keeping them separate,
that's
That's
good.
and
good.
they'll
It's
never
got to
cross
be.
paths. Yeah.
God,
So,
that seems very Disney because I mean,
oh
obviously,
yeah.
everyone's heard the stories about Disney about how the characters, you can't take off your helmet if you're goofy, even if you got to throw up, you just got to throw up inside the helmet. I mean, there's all kinds of those crazy stories that go around,
And
and
they used to be way better about it, where like Mickey Mouse can't be in the parade and in his house in Toontown at the same time. So
right,
if there's a parade going on, you will not be able to find Mickey. Like they used to be way better about it. In the
Mhm.
last decade or so, they've slipped a little bit more and gotten a little more lenient on some of the double appearances. But for the most part, especially with Galaxy's Edge, they're trying to stay really consistent on it.
gotcha,
It's really cool. That's really
gotcha,
cool.
cool.
Um, yeah, yeah, geez, that explanation does open up a ton of stuff. Like you
Doesn't it?
could realistically see Yoda and I think that the other character was a Padawan created for the game, and her
Oh yeah.
name's escaping me, but it was a really cool mission. So you could realistically see that kind of happen, or see her
And it would
and
make sense and be okay and wouldn't
yeah,
break canon
Right,
technically.
I like
So
it. Even though, yeah, that because that happened, I think in the game that happened back like prequel era,
yeah, yeah.
or
Some of that
even
was like
earlier, right? Like that was,
almost High Republic or something. Some of it,
yeah,
like
that
some
was
of it
way
goes
back.
way back. It
'Cause
was very young
Yoda
Yoda.
wasn't even like he was just a badass coming into that mission.
Yeah,
Like
he
he
was a
dropped
very
down
young
and he was
Yoda.
just like, "We're gonna clear shit out." That was a fun mission in that game.
yeah,
Um, all right, that's really cool. I like that explanation. That was something I was confused on, so I'm glad we cleared that up.
yeah,
Let's jump into some news, fellas. Let's
yeah.
because we've
Right.
got some interesting stuff that happened this week. One thing in particular stood out to me, so I wanted to get your opinions on this. John Caston just had this big interview with, I think it was Variety. It could be someone else.
Hollywood Reporter says here, yeah.
Hollywood Reporter. Okay, there we go. So he said he thinks Solo would make a great Star Wars special presentation. There's a lot more that he said
Yes.
about like some
Yeah.
errors that he made in Solo that he would like to go back and kind of retcon, correct kind of thing. And
Right.
anyway, so this is partially him wanting to make up for those mistakes, but he also thinks that it would just Solo would make a great special presentation for Star Wars, similar to Werewolf by Night or
No,
the
right.
Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, which are condensed into about an hour, so
Right.
not a full movie, not a
Or if
series or whatever.
if you put the two of them together, which Todd and I were particularly proud of this, Once Upon a Werewolf.
Ooh, I like that. That is
I loved it.
my
It was
new
good.
favorite way to watch that. I'm
Once
going to
Upon a
do that
Werewolf.
for sure. That's fantastic. Um, so, what do you guys think? Do you think this format could work? Have you been impressed with what Marvel has done so far? Do you think?
Man,
What
I
do you
mean,
think?
Once Upon a Werewolf or Werewolf by Night was spectacular, and I found the Guardians thing to be. Mark, I know you're crazy about it. I found it to be
Loved
maybe a
it.
little too goofy, but still, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, little bite-sized deals where you're just like, it's a fun story. In this case, you've got Solo set it up, and for hook or by crook, it's like you'll hear when SFU drops this week, which it'll be out by the time you're listening to this. Todd decided to make war with Ron Howard and said some kind of bad stuff about Ron Howard and his ability to do genre films. Because we were talking about Solo because we were reviewing the trailer of the Cocaine Bear, which the guy who played on Solo, Alden Ehrenreich is in the trailer. I enjoyed Solo very much. I mean, it has a very tainted history, but it was cool, and I thought he did a great job. And I think I would love to revisit this, and even some of the stuff that John Kasdan says in this about Kira and wanting to make her the ultimate Black Widow of the Star Wars universe. I think it'd be spectacular. I'm very, very interested in revisiting Solo, particularly with Donald Glover's turn as Lando was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Dana?
So I think this is really interesting to try that format, the TV show but not a full series kind of format.
Yeah.
I feel two ways about it. Yes, I want to see Star Wars do that because I think it worked well with Marvel. But I feel like for Solo 2, I want a full movie. I don't know that I want just a featurette, like an hour-long Solo 2. It could work if it's the right story, and I know I would probably still want more after that. Part of me wants a full meal instead of just a snack.
Right. And especially with such an iconic character, because when you look at Werewolf by Night, nobody knows anything about Jack Russell. He's part of the Marvel horror line from the 70s. Very, very fringe, very inside baseball. So bringing him out the way that they did worked out just fine. With the Guardians, they made it a super spoof, but they definitely made it low budget because they had one standing set and a few special effects, and then they filmed on location in LA at night. And they made it just about Mantis and Drax. So it's just it was very low budget, very tongue in cheek.
Also wore a shirt. Drax is wearing a shirt the whole time, which is kind of off-putting, but it's like just save the makeup time. And
cut down on that makeup budget. So you're right. That in some ways that really doesn't serve continuing a feature film.
Either way, I want more. Initially when Solo came out, I liked it, didn't love it, but it's grown on me a lot over the years.
I agree.
With subsequent watches, it really grew on me a ton.
And I know I've had it on. That's been a background piece for me. It's been on a lot, so I've heard it and played it over. Woody Harrelson was great in that movie as Han's, mentor, who in the end tries to kill him. Great mentor. I mean, I have a mentor in my career. The guy never tried to kill me, so I guess I'm pretty grateful about that. Yet. You're right.
Yet.
You're absolutely right. So, you're right. I definitely want to see more. Could this be a way that Disney tests the waters with that cast of characters?
So, if that's because
the film was perceived as being not successful.
Exactly. So, if that's the only way we get more Solo, then I'll take it. Absolutely. Yeah. But I would prefer a feature-length film.
Right.
But if that's it, if this is the only way to get it done,
right,
then let's whet our appetites with this, and then maybe we get a more full story later down the road if this is successful.
Right. I mean, right now, Star Wars isn't doing anything cinematically. There's it could be a thing. Maybe it'll be this thing. Kevin Feige's talking about this thing. Blah blah blah. This thing or that thing. It's just like, okay, fine. Star Wars. Don't quit breaking my heart. Stop promising. Don't threaten me with a good time. Star Wars.
I agree with you, Dano. If they can justify a full movie for something, I want to see that. If they can justify a full series, cool. But if that's the only way, a 1 hour special one-off kind of thing, if that's the only way something's going to get made or something's going to continue, let's go. Or if there's a good enough story that's doesn't need to be expanded. And I think there's that
could be done in the Solo 2 or in the Solo era. You could just tell a fun, quick adventure.
Right.
I honestly, this is probably going to get me a little bit canceled by some of the Star Wars fandom. Sure. I think the first season of Andor could have been condensed. I thought there was a lot of filler kind of stuff. And I don't know if it can be condensed down to an hour-long special in this same way. I think that may have cut too much out.
Right.
But
a 6-part miniseries, Yeah,
Right.
which is funny because that's where Boba Fett failed. They couldn't even get 8 episodes out of it.
Right.
Mandalorian had to come in and back him up. It was like the Simpsons spin-off showcase, you know?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times like Star Wars is still doing those same kind of mistakes of like they make a decision and then have to cope with it, kind of like the sequels. And I like the sequels, but they didn't have a plan going in. They let everyone
Right.
kind of do this
Yeah.
and to varying degrees of success.
Nobody's driving a
And
car. Yeah.
I think sometimes with these shows, they say, yeah, the show's going to be 8 episodes. Cool. What are we going to fill that with? And
Yeah.
and then they write a
Crickets.
story
Right.
that should have been 5 episodes, but they're still like, nah, fuck it. We budgeted for 8. So that's what we're doing. And, Boba Fett could have probably been a special or a 2-hour, 3 or 4 episode drop and cut out some of
Right.
that fat. And
Right.
like, there's not a single Star Wars thing that has been, I think maybe aside from like some of the Mando stuff, I guess that I felt like
Right.
every single thing had to be there, right? But
Even
I'm
Mando,
sure
it
it's been a
turned
while
it,
since I watched Mando. I'm sure it's there that I could go back and
There's
watch.
some
Like,
fluff in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I'm sure we'll go back and maybe even before Mando comes on in February, we'll do a little Mando big wrap up. But yeah, if you go back and watch, like, the frog lady part of it was kind of was kind of superfluous. Or when he meets Bo-Katan, he's like, well, we'll help you out, but first you got to do this thing that might get you killed. And it's
there's always that.
Yeah.
And there were like 3 or 4
kind of thing.
instances of that. Like, when he hooked up with all the mercs and they rescued, Bill Burr was in it and they rescued it.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
That
it's just like,
episode is
okay.
like the number one fluff episode. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
I loved it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't necessary to his overall story arc. So
yeah,
for sure. I did love that Bill Burr redemption.
Yeah.
Oh no, but see, so that was nice too, though, is because of that episode, they did make it pay off later in season 2.
Yeah.
Right.
So it did work out in the long run. But
which maybe, and we're going to talk about the wrap up of Andor. Maybe Andor will end up kind of being the same thing. Maybe some of the things that were like that we slept on are going to be like, oh well, gosh, now this thing is, and okay, and it'll all pay off. But that's a risky way to play it. But it's Star Wars, and people are still watching, so they're like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Your podcast just became an official Dano channel thing. I had a bunch of boxes just fall over right now.
I saw something move and fall in the background.
I don't know
sure what it was. It's not.
Well, it's a bunch of boxes. It's fine. Nothing major, but
that's good. Nothing breakable. Now. We're good. Hey, we're official. Right.
The force is in motion. All right. Well, Mark, before we move on, should I talk a little bit about the thing that I should talk about?
You definitely should.
Oh my goodness, friends. Please support Secret Friends Unite as you can visit our delightful sponsor, Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. And at the holidays, join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SFU at manscaped.com. Mark, as you know, I don't love math, but this one was easy enough for me. That's about 12 million balls, plus you, me, and Todd. And as Todd pointed out, he shaves his head. So that's 12 million and 7. 12 million and 7. 12 million and 7 balls. His head being half of a ball.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I've been loving this product. I just recently used the ear, the nose ear trimmer, and that thing is so effortless. You don't feel just a little bit in the ear.
No rips and tears with that. I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm thinking about getting that for my old man for Christmas, but I better jump on. I better not sleep on that because it's already December 5. But yeah, great product, and a lot of people in the Secret Friends world have been taking advantage of this. So now is the time. Again, manscaped.com and the code SFU to get your 20% discount. And thank you to Manscaped.
Yeah. And for our Canadian listeners, manscaped.ca works just as well. You still get the 20% off. And for our female listeners, there's been some great stuff. Manscaped released some articles. I've had a couple of people message me and say, like, it's called Manscaped. Does it still work for women? Yes. They've compared it to other, razors and things meant for that kind of area. And they said, if something's delicate, and built for that kind of precision for men, It can also work for women. So it's highly recommended for whatever gender you identify as.
Yes.
They can help you out, despite the name being
Yes.
Manscaped. It's more like Peoplescaped. So
It
don't be afraid.
takes
Take
care of the
advantage
hairy
of
places. Make it happen.
exactly. There you go.
You got
So
it.
take advantage of that code. That's SFU at manscaped.com.
You
Thanks,
got
John.
it. You got it. Yeah.
All righty, gentlemen, let's jump in to the big stuff. We have not talked about episode 12 for Andor as of yet. And so I wanted to kind of give our thoughts about that final episode and then how you felt overall about the characters. But let's go episode 12 first. A lot happened here.
Yeah.
This was a lot. Dano, you just said you're super high on Andor. Let's start with you. What were your thoughts on this episode first, and then we'll get into the season or the series in general.
So this episode was this really like it was the culmination of everything that we've been building up for, right? Like they landed this episode really well. You never know how a series is or a season is going to like land, and they brought everybody together. We're back on Ferrix. You've got literally everybody there. Andor's back. Marva, unfortunately, is dead. We're there for her funeral, but B2's there. Brasso's there, of course. Gotta love Brasso. Luthen's there to kill Cassian, of all things. Like, everyone except for Mon Mothma, because she doesn't need to be there yet, but we still touched on her story and got we got a little bit of everything. And so this was a very, very tense episode. And with it being the funeral and the whole marching band, this song building in that they're doing, they're leading up to it. Quick aside, did you realize that the song that they're playing is in episode 1 of Andor? When you start the show and they show the logo for Andor, that song they're playing is the song the marching band's playing.
What?
It goes full circle.
Oh.
It goes full circle.
That song, even just because I watched it just before we got on here, just absolutely reminded me of that sad song they were singing in the chapel in Titanic about, our lives peril on the sea. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I know. It's the saddest marching band of all time.
They let us know in episode 1 though, like with that song. That was the very first thing we hear of the show is that song. And that's how we kind of end this season is with that. And it was a really intense episode. Like all of the tension. So I've been hosting watch parties every Tuesday night. We start at 11 o'clock my time because it happens at midnight. So we hang out for an hour, and then as soon as the episode drops, everyone in my chat lets me know, and we all sync up and we click at the same time and we watch together. And it's been a fun ride. But you can just like see in the chat, everybody's tension, everybody's tense. We're all like, I literally throughout this show have gotten chills more times than I have in any other Star Wars. Like down the back of my neck, actual chills in this show more than any other Star Wars property. And it's just the way Tony Gilroy nailed this tension and being able to just weave this story from the beginning. There are a couple things overall that we'll get into it in a little bit, I think, but there were a couple things from the very beginning that didn't get touched up on that I thought maybe we should or we would. But overall, this episode was just really, it was good. It was a good wrap up. It was the first season was this education of Cassian Andor. It was it was him, like that. It was his little chunk of story where he went from not caring about the rebellion to being kill me or bring me in, or
that line was so great.
It was so good. And so that's what this whole season was. Everything from the eye, the intro with the eye and him learning about Nemec and his manifesto, and just this slow I feel like the whole season was this slow pulsing of everything just getting more and more intense as we went on. Then we get to the prison and that's more intense. And then we get to this very end and it's just this big giant pulsating buildup. And now we have this like pressure of, okay, well, Cassian's in, then this is, and then what is season 2 going to bring us? So I'm just,
that's what's the wildest at all is thinking that this set us on a course of, I think, of more promise than anything else. Definitely a promise of what's to come. Yes, it did take us a long time to evolve through this. And you're right. this episode was great because it did bring everybody together. And even though Marva was there in spirit, she also got to be there physically because the guy carrying the brick just starts beating the shit out of those riot troopers. So she really did get to fight the Empire in physical form. But it was just, the action in that, just to see how that tense population exploded. And it was funny as her speech started to turn, and as the Imperial Commandant takes off his cloak and throws it over the droid and kicks it, but enough time for her to say, "Fight the Empire," and he kicks the poor Bebo over, and that's when the guy goes, bam! Just rampage!
It was satisfying. It was so satisfying.
Have you heard the original line for that?
Yeah, F the Empire.
It was not fight. Yeah, it was a different F word.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't, obviously, Disney wouldn't let them go that far. But holy, that's
they went for it. They went for it.
To me, they went for it. Yeah, that was, that was the mindset that they were going in with this, and that just tells you kind of how they were writing this show,
right? Yeah,
what they were writing this show for, and that. Just even reading that made me appreciate this whole series more, but this episode especially of that is the feeling, rage against the machine. Absolutely. Go nuts. Just, this is what we're here for.
And while on one hand, it didn't feel super Star Wars, if you go back to A New Hope, it wasn't as goofy or, as jokey. It was a very serious show. There were not a lot of laughs in this show.
Nobody was having fun. Anywhere in this show
at all. It was the most serious Star Wars we have ever gotten, but it was also very, very Star Wars in that way of no, this was about the rebellion. We're watching the rebellion happen in a bunch of different ways throughout the show, whether it's first with the eye, the Aldani, that little small thing happening, to seeing these people in the prison later. It's a little bit bigger, but they're learning that look, the Empire has got them to a point where they have no choice. And it's a small rebellion of a couple, 1,000 people in that one prison. And then we get to another citywide rebellion. It's a little bit bigger now. Right. And so it's, like I said, it's this pulsating, little, you see the kids in the very beginning when those flashbacks when Cassian's younger, that's their own small little rebellion. And so it's this whole season has been these little flashes of how rebellions get built by people being forced into these uncompromising positions where you can't, you have no choice. You have no choice but to fight or die.
And by an extension, over to Rogue One, where you get Jyn Erso, who's also living this kind of hand-to-mouth lifestyle, gets co-opted by the rebellion, and she's like, well, I guess I can get this, or they're gonna kick me off the edge of the Massassi Temple or whatever. And at the end, she becomes so polarized by everything, she gives that roaring speech, not only in the control center at the temple, but then also on the Rogue One ship before they land. A man with a spear and can kill 100 people in whatever. I'm forgetting the speech, but you know what I'm talking about. It's very rousing. Yeah. But you're right. So it's somebody who in the beginning is like, man, I don't give a shit. To let's f the Empire, f the Empire.
What's interesting, and when you bring up Jyn Erso, she has a similar arc to Cassian. What made Jyn Erso turn? Her dad got killed by the Empire.
Right.
What really made Cassian turn? Losing Marva. That was the last straw of all of this, was losing Marva, and he's like, all right, no, I'm in now. It was the prison for a larger extent, but Marva was the final hit.
And that was her final wish, F the Empire. And he heard that, and everybody heard it. How great was it to see the clock tower guy drop kick that stormtrooper?
Yeah.
I mean, that
300 style.
Could have been the greatest visual in the episode. Guys,
I was just gonna say my favorite character moment, and I was gonna ask you guys, what's your favorite moments or little bits and pieces? That was just
hands
that
down
kick. And we had commented on that guy, and it was just kind of this cool world building of this dude, but they stuck on him so long that I was like, he's got to come back. He's got to.
They got to go.
And it was just come back for a kick and rousing everyone up during that procession. But man, what a payoff. Yeah. Even if it was very kind of simple with that kick, but what were there any other moments that stood out for you guys? Moments, scenes, characters?
I've got one, and it's plenty creepy, and it's funny. I said it to April when we first watched it, and I did it just now with Miro, who is the most buttoned up lizard face woman I think I've ever seen, and creepy mama's boy guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Cyril.
Cyril. When he rescues her and she's hyperventilating, she's like, I think I should say sorry. He's like, oh, you don't have to. I'm like, are they just going to fucking kiss now? Or did they cut away from it because then they just, in a moment of panic, started doing it? I don't know. It was just like
I think they wanted us all to feel that. They wanted us all to feel confused and gross.
I know there's no sex in Star Wars because there was sex in this between Bix and the guy who sold casting out, and then he got killed. So to have sex in Star Wars means you die. I mean, let's look at it, Leia or Padme. I mean, sex is not good for being
like a horror movie.
Star Wars character. Exactly. You have sex, you die. So yeah, I'm like, so obviously Cyril's going to show up in the next season. They're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend in a very toxic Empire relationship. I don't know. Something's going to happen with him because she's like, she's all breathless and stuff. And I'm like, did this turn into a thing? Because
I feel like there's two ways about the Cyril Daedra thing. She's either going to give him a job and he's going to be like awesome and love it, or she's going to burn him again. And it might be the last straw for him where he's like, the Empire keeps screwing me over. All I want to do is help. And they keep pushing me down and pushing me away. Right. And eventually he's going to break and join the rebellion. Maybe I could see that arc happening because they've done it before with Agent Callus and Rebels, but I feel like it's a little too predictable. So I don't know. But I feel like it's either she gives him a job because she does not like him. I don't think anybody likes him.
No. That was why Todd said he quit watching shows. Like I couldn't deal with the weasel guy and his mother. It was just like I didn't want to watch that.
And that's it. Like unlike Callus, like I don't want to root for this guy at all.
I don't want him to join the rebellion. Yeah,
I just want him to kind of
get redeemed, sir.
You just like to quote.
He doesn't get a happy ending. He doesn't get redeemed. I don't want him to kiss anyone or have fun. I just
like from Clerks, the line from Dante to Randall. I suddenly want something very bad to happen to you.
Yeah. I feel that. So, okay, Dano, I think you brought up something kind of interesting. Is this series kind of? You mentioned that Andor has a very similar arc or similar reason for joining the rebellion as Jyn does, and we saw her entire arc succinctly told within a 2.5 hour long movie.
Mm-hmm.
What, as a series overall, do you feel like it was justified for Andor, or do you think it could have been condensed down? How do you guys feel? Because for me personally, I'm still wondering. I think I have to rewatch it all, start to finish, without the week in between.
And that's what my wife April said too. She's just like, I'm like, babe, people are saying this is like the best Star Wars of all time. She's like, is it though? Because I just don't know, because it's kind of dragged ass. But should I watch it all again? But I'm like, it's 12 hours though. This is the longest episodic live action thing that we've had so far. Live action that we've had so far. Obviously, the Clone Wars ran for years and years, and it was little half-hour episodes, whatever it is. So it's really not an apt comparison. But was this too long? Because did they do well with what they had, where Boba Fett had less and managed to, in my opinion, royally screw it up because it was a lot of wasted time? I'm just not sure. I feel like I'm along the same track as you. Like it's due for a rewatch to really decide if it was, if they, if the juice gets the squeeze, if they really got the best out of it that they could.
And I like a more serious tone for Star Wars, but I don't want that to be what Star Wars becomes.
Right.
And I think,
absolutely.
I think looking at comic book movies, you see DC trying for years to replicate the Dark Knight and kind of seriousifying itself to the point where it kind of just stopped being effective for them.
Right.
And then you see Marvel, who can do very serious stuff. I just finished watching Civil War, and like that just
Mm-hmm.
takes your breath away every single time. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
know who to root for. You don't know who to feel sorry for. At the end, you just feel like crying for everyone and
Right.
getting a shower in your clothes. And it's just,
Everybody's life sucks
you know,
now. That's the end of
yeah.
that movie.
And they can do that, but they can also have Ant-Man and Spider-Man flipping off one-liners while they fight everyone.
Right.
So Marvel never really loses that bit of brevity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we saw DC lose that. We've seen them make some strides and stumble here and there, whatever,
Well,
but
one
like
step
some
forward, two
strides to
steps
kind of
back.
make it
Yeah.
up through one fault or another. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think if all Star Wars starts to go this way, it's just going to be
Right.
way too serious.
It's gonna turn into
But,
Zack Snyder's Star Wars, is what you're saying.
I don't think it
but I
will.
also appreciate it.
I don't imagine that it will. I think they've kind of found that. Hopefully, if I'm right about this, they are dabbling in different genres and they're trying different things, but they're not going to make it all this. Boba Fett, like you brought up, for all of its mistakes and whatever, it was a kids show. It's a goofy kids show. It's not like it works if you're a kid who's just like, no, I want to see Boba Fett do silly stuff and whatever. It's a kids show. In that sense, like, okay, it's a live action Star Wars kids show. Cool. This is more serious. That's way more subtle. Every line of dialogue was not wasted. Like there is subtlety and double speak and nuance in this entire show. Every single minute has something to it. So it's just a different style. And I agree with you. I don't think Star Wars should become just this. Like, I don't want the next movie to be all this, but I think for what it was for this one season and probably the next season, if it's going to carry the same tone, I think it worked. I think it worked well. And I think Star Wars is going to do good by itself to do that and give the adults or the more mature mind something to digest. But also at the same time, give us that goofy shit. Like, give us all of it. Like Star Wars doesn't have to be one thing. It's a huge galaxy. It can be so many different. Like I said earlier, I want that Days of Thunder style racing movie. Give me a racing movie. It doesn't need to be super serious. It doesn't need to be like super goofy. But like, I want a racing style movie. Give me Spinal Tap about Figure and Dan and the modal notes. Like
it could be none more black.
And Rogue One, which is attached to Andor, that was a heist movie. That was the first time we really had a heist style film, and that was something completely different. There wasn't a whole lot of force. There wasn't lightsabers. There was Vader had his lightsaber very end, but whatever. For the most part, there wasn't.
The best Vadering that ever Vadered happened in those 3 minutes.
It wasn't even 3 minutes. It was like 30 seconds, if 30 seconds. It was very brief. But still, it was a different kind of movie, and I very much love that they're trying this stuff. I think it's cool that they're doing different things, but I'm not worried at all that Star Wars is going to become just this. And I don't want it to be, as much as I love it, I don't want it to be just this either.
Right.
And I think they're aware of that. I think they're maybe testing the waters, like, well, what works? What can we try within this galaxy? We can do the silly Jedi game show on YouTube with where they did it was like Legends of the Hidden Temple. But with Ahmed Best, we can do that kind of stuff with Star Wars. We can do a kids show just about creatures. We can do Boba Fett, which is live action but a bit more goofy. But then we can do something that brings everybody, like Mando. So it's for the kids. Everybody's here for it. Then we can also do something serious and nuanced and like more HBO drama style, like Andor.
Yeah, very much so.
Big time.
And so I think there's room for all of it, and it's okay that it's not going to land with everybody. Because it won't. It absolutely won't.
And there were, I enjoyed the show. It was not my favorite bit of Star Wars, but I enjoyed it, especially as it continued on. I thought the slow start, it was a little like I stuck with it, but I stick by. I think I would have preferred watching this kind of not all at once. I'm not going to sit down for 12 hours.
Like during my watch parties, I think it was around episode 4 or 5. It was within like the second week because they got 3 episodes right off the bat. It was around the second or third week in. I had this thought of this show is going to be so much better for people who waited.
Right.
Once people can sit and binge and don't have to wait week to week, this is a very bingeable, nonstop show. And it's going to be so much more enjoyable that way. As much as I enjoyed it week to week, it is a very bingeable. Just give it give it your whole Saturday or whatever. Like
Yeah.
go all
Yeah.
12 hours, like
Yeah, right.
on one set, like go for it. But it is very much a bingeable show, and I think if people waited and didn't watch it yet, they're probably going to like it and enjoy it a little bit more than we did watching it week to week. Just because
that's so weird, because Netflix is the service that still will do that. Like, here's 10 episodes of Wednesday, which
and that doesn't always work. That's not always a good idea.
But Disney just won't. It's not their thing. So, but would that have been preferential for this, or are they so? It seems that they're so. If you're worried that streaming services are potentially so desperate, oh my God, we're going to lose people month to month. I mean, for the big services, we're signed up, for, Paramount Plus. We're signed. I'll always have Paramount Plus. They have all the Star Treks. We'll always have that for a year at a time. Or, Disney will always have Disney because they'll always have something, or Hulu or what, we did the bundle. So are they that worried that people are just like, oh, I like Star Wars, but I'm going to sign up and then I'm going to cancel? There are different consumers that take things in different ways. I feel like it might be better to just simply reward people with giving them the best experience possible, and not necessarily worrying about losing people. I don't know.
I think that depends on the story.
Yeah.
Normally,
normally
I agree with the week to week model. I think that works so much better for most stories, and then you keep it relevant. Your show's relevant for months instead of for like 2 weeks. And so that's like Netflix failing sometimes, is like they'll release this really good show and we talk about it for a week and a half and then that's it and it fizzles out. It was good, but if they released it week to week, we would have talked about it for much longer.
Right.
And that's been some of Disney's success, especially with Mandalorian, is we're talking about it for months and months, and it's got this hype built around it. So I understand their week to week model, but I do think a show like Andor is going to benefit. Like it's just the type of story, the way it's done, the way it's shot, that build up those cliffhangers at the end where you're left like, oh my God, what is going to happen to Mon Mothma next? What's the situation with her daughter? What about Davo? That kind of stuff this type of show, this espionage, this type of thing is kind of meant for a binge model. And so this is the exception. Normally I would say, no, week to week is the way to go. But maybe this one time it works a little bit better to be able to binge this.
Yeah. Even binging sections at a time. Where you
3 episode arcs or whatever, the way they
3 episodes or 4 episodes of this, that's one ripple, or one pebble dropped and causing a ripple. The next pebble that drops, is the
there's
next
like 4 arcs
2
in the
or
show.
3 episodes, right? Yeah, there's a few arcs, right?
So it could have been a month. Yeah, it could have been a month instead of
that would have been good.
I
would actually really would have enjoyed that. That would have been a really cool way to do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to watch this in a few different ways because I liked it, but I thought there were pacing issues. So I really want to watch this in some chunks at a time or something. Moving on, one thing first, I guess this is going to be like 2 in 1. Let's go. Are you excited for season 2? And going into season 2, what would you have learned? I think we just discussed like what, if anything, we could change, that binge. Is there anything else that you would learn from season 1 if you were in charge that you'd take for season 2 and go forward?
Season 2 is going to be wild. Because we're doing multiple years, like every 2 or 3 episodes, instead of being like a moment. That's a whole year covered in 2 or 3 episodes next season. So it's going to be faster paced. It's going to be more intense, faster and more intense, as George might say.
Yes, exactly. and a lot more will happen because of that. Because it'll be like, all right, well, this is the year, and bang, bang, this is this mission, and it's spun off of this, and then maybe it leaves you on a cliffhanger that even week to week you're going to be like, oh, what? And then it'll pick up, and you'll have to get, they'll have to recap what happened. Like, Joe Blow got shot at the end of episode 3, and does he make it? And then episode 4 starts, and you still don't know if he's alive. And then maybe he shows up and he becomes a bounty hunter, and he shows up at the end of it, and like, I'm a bad guy now. And you know what I mean? So, but you're right. The necessity to pick up the pace and to have every minute, to do the Rick McCallum. Oh man, there's so much stuff happening in every shot. There's so much going on. It's going to become Rick McCallum central, and plus George is faster and more intense. It'll be more than you can handle.
Yeah, it's going to be a very intense season.
Yeah. So Daniel, if you want to continue.
Sure. So I don't like. I honestly don't know what we're going to see. We're going to get him built up until we meet him in Rogue One. So we're going to get a K2SO, right?
Yeah.
Like we got a little bit of
Mm-hmm,
tease
mm-hmm,
of K2 droids in this season,
Mhm.
but we're going to actually see him meet K2SO at some point,
mm-hmm,
and we're going to see his further involvement in the rebellion with Luthen. Which
mm-hmm.
Luthen
Yeah.
throughout this whole first season has been the most amazing character to me.
Right. The
His
speech.
ability, oh, his speech. I've
Oh,
made my
yeah.
mind a sunless place. Like all of that
Yeah,
stuff is going to stick with me
Incredible.
forever. Like
I know.
that speech hit so hard. There were so
He
many speeches in that one episode that hit
best
hard.
monologue of all of
That
Star
was
Wars,
No
I
Way
think. My
Out, right?
God.
That was the episode No Way Out.
Yeah, huh?
And Andy Serkis gave a great speech. Like that whole episode
Right.
had like 3 or 4 really good monologues that were like,
Yeah.
oh
It was
wow.
no way out of a great speech. That was the episode. That was
And
really what was going on.
And so I think we're going to get that same level of writing, that same level of storytelling, but again, faster and more intense.
Right.
So I'm
Exactly.
really, really looking forward to season 2 because they're just going to hit us. I think we're going to just like not be able to breathe watching
Right.
season 2 if this like telescoping nature of the show where like it starts out
Right.
slow and it really does gradually get faster to by the end. We're at this last episode, we're like, okay, this is really going like. And
Right.
so I think next season's going to be even faster until we get this lead up right into Rogue One.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
for sure.
Wild. Wild.
So, with that, is there anything that you would take and change from season one, or do you think that it's going to do that on its own by necessity of being that time jump kind of intensity?
I
Yeah,
wouldn't change
I think so.
much,
Yeah.
honestly. I
No.
don't think I
Okay.
would. I think season 2, like when the whole project's done, and I like that it's just 2 seasons, they've nailed it out.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is what the
Right.
story needs to be. That's what it's going to be. We don't need to try to milk this thing for more. They're servicing story, not money, like,
Yeah.
and so and it shows. And so I think we're going to end up with this beautiful project at the end that a
Mhm.
lot of us who like really enjoy this kind of stuff and then really take in the nuance of it are going to look back and say that was a really freaking cool Star Wars story they told us.
Right. For sure. Yeah. No,
Charlie,
I
what about
think
yourself? Yeah.
I think again we've set the course to the point where there won't be such similarities between a slower burn of season 1 where people are like, get on with it. Even in the beginning
Yeah.
we were like, oh, the first 3 episodes, and that's why they released them all at once because they just dragged. And
You
it's
kind of
like,
needed it. You needed to
yeah,
you needed to learn the show. They needed to teach
yeah,
us what this is. One
right.
episode wouldn't have done that.
And now that they've done that, you're going from, you're kicking the training wheels off and you're going from riding your 2-speed to riding a Harley,
Yeah.
and it's just going to be, they're going to be snapping necks and writing checks. It's going to be unstoppable. So, yeah. And we don't know, this show did have some simultaneous production. So is, season 2 underway? Is it done? Do we know
I
when
think
we're
they
going to get it?
I want to say they started production within the last month, which
Okay.
means we're at least 2 years out. Like they're going to be filming now until 2 or 3 months from now.
Right.
Spend a lot of that working on it in post, and then we're probably going to get it 2024, late 2024, I would imagine.
Right. So just
makes
like
sense.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention that I think I might change: what happened to the whole storyline with Cassian's sister?
Right.
Oh yeah, right. That's
that's
was
the only thread that didn't
immediately.
get tied up at the end. Hopefully we get that in season 2, a little something more, because that's where the episode or those seasons started, was him going to that brothel looking for who we think is his sister, and that never really got addressed in the game. I thought it might, because in the recap for the last episode they mentioned it briefly in the recap. They showed that clip from episode 1. And they never really touched on it. So that's the only thing. If you're asking like what I would change, give me a little something more on that.
Right. A little bit more of a taste.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And that was something that stuck out for me, where now we see Andor of, let me into the rebellion or shoot me, train me, do this kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, well, if he's jumping all in to the rebellion, is he giving up on his sister? Is that
watch his sister's part of the Empire or something weird? Like, like it's gonna be one of those. What a twist!
And I'm sure they'll address it, but right now, it just, for me, it's like, okay, if that's, you've lost your adoptive father, your mother, your sister's out there somewhere and you were so hell-bent on finding her that you ended up shooting 2 guys in a bar fight.
Right.
And that's what kind of, snowballed into this whole thing. But now that the snowball is this massive avalanche, like, did you forget that that's how it started? Like, your sister's still out there.
She's still out there, allegedly.
Why are you jumping 2 feet? Like,
possibly
jump
working
1 foot
in a
into the rebellion, dude. Go still find your sister. Yeah, that was
right. It's like Anakin going back to free his mother. What was he doing for the next 10 years? A bunch of stuff. Very busy. Dude, I'm so busy. Oh my God.
My mom's still going to be a slave. Don't worry about it.
Fine. She'll still be there. She'll be there. I know where to find her. It's okay.
So that was, but I mean, aside from that, this ended on such a high note. I am so excited for season 2 because I do think, and I've been hard on this show. This show's like pacing, and I've always said, like, I've enjoyed the show while I'm watching it. I love it, but there was something of, I wish I could have watched faster. I wish I could have binged it. Like That's you fair. Said, that I think it's going to be a little bit better watched all at once or in some chunks. But I enjoyed it for what it was. I love that they're doing something different and serious and HBO-esque, as you kind of put it.
Yeah.
True.
And I think season 2 is going to change any kind of those issues that we're seeing this and just speed things up and bring it to a very satisfying close / connection to Rogue One, which I friggin' love Rogue One. So as we're building to that, it's just going to keep getting better and better. So I'm very excited, and I'm also kind of sad because I think you're right that we won't be seeing this for like 2 years.
Right. That's tough, but something of this scope, 12 whole episodes, and they're an hour each, and there's so much production and
I don't imagine it's a 2023 release. Not at all.
No.
Not if we're working on it right now.
And we're getting Mando March 1st.
Yes, and then Ahsoka at some point next year. We've got a full year next year. We're gonna be okay.
And Bad Batch in between. Bad Batch is January.
Bad Batch starts January. Beginning of January.
A month.
So that's his, and I would imagine the announcement for Ahsoka can't be that far off. So we're not gonna be starved. I bet Ahsoka will be the last half of the year, so maybe that'll be fall.
We also have the kids with what's his face?
Jude Law.
Yeah. What? I forget what that's called.
Yes. And the Acolyte, which
Skeleton Crew.
Right.
And the Acolyte. That's right.
And the Acolyte.
Right. So then, so it'll make it.
Complain.
They're working on Acolyte right now, though. So I imagine maybe that's an early 2024, whereas Cassie is a late 2024.
Yeah, there you go. So that'll bracket it out. So awesome.
Yes. Amazing.
Well,
let's wrap it up there, fellas. It's getting late. Dano, thank you so much for joining us. This was a blast. We got to get you back. We got to figure out something even between the channels of celebrating some N64 games. That's how I remember Shadows is the N64 games.
Charlie's got the rest of it.
I did the comic and the book and the figures. That was big for me. Not necessarily in the soundtrack. I don't really know much about that, but the figures.
But we have to have you back, and we have to figure something out there, I think, to celebrate that game sooner rather than later. But again, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. This has been a pleasure. Please tell people where they can find you on the internet and what you're up to.
So you can find me on youtube.com/the Dano channel. Every Tuesday night, I'm doing a live stream watch party of something. If there's not a new show like Andor or The Bad Batch, you can find me at 11 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday night, either rewatching something leading up to the next show or whatever. You can always find me live late night Tuesday night. But another big project I'm working on, in fact, this is our third one. We just locked a venue for our third one. It's a little project called Mosh Isley. And it is a Star Wars emo night punk party that we have been throwing. We threw one in Las Vegas in October. We threw one during Celebration in Anaheim back in May. And we just locked in a venue for our third one coming this summer. I can't give you details quite yet as to exactly where, but it's going to be the biggest nerd event ever. And I am so excited to let the whole world know about it because it's amazing.
Awesome.
That's wild.
It's going to be good stuff. So follow Mosh Isley on Instagram @Mosh Isley or Twitter. And just get ready because it's going to be the coolest Star Wars party you've ever witnessed.
Oh man! All right, I'm on board.
Awesome,
That's cool.
That is amazing. Yeah, follow those accounts. Anywhere else to follow you specifically? Or
Instagram
just
at the
YouTube's the
Dano
best place?
channel and Twitter at the Dano channel as well. So yeah, I'm on all those places all the
Perfect.
time.
Everything will be in the show notes. If you missed him saying all that, check those and make sure you follow Dano. And once again, man, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, this was a blast. Loved it.
Awesome. Charlie.
Yes. Well, I am. I've turned away from Facebook, turned away from Instagram because of being hacked and nuked. Happened to me several weeks ago. So I'm a little bit more low key. But you can find me over on Twitter at the C3. Also on Discord, same tag for the two groups I'm responsible for, which is our Secret Friends Unite group, and also for the USS Grand Petoskey, we're chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club here in Michigan and Eastern Canada, is the region that I run, but we're a global organization. Got a lot of great conversations going on over there, not only about Star Trek, but anything you want to talk about on either one of those servers. So come check us out. And that's me. Mark, what about you?
Man, you like the Discord is absolutely blowing up. The Secret Friends Unite Discord, it's amazing. The amount of people and conversations that have been happening in there the last couple of weeks. And Charlie, I have to thank you a lot for bringing more people in the last couple of weeks. It's been fantastic. So kudos, man. Thank you. It's
glad
amazing.
to do it. I love it. I'm a true believer in Discord now. I've totally thrown myself into it.
That's great. Good to see. So join that. Again, links are in the show notes. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @the_Canardian and on Hive at just Canardian. If you're on Hive, because I think they're kind of almost back up and running. And that's a great place for a lot of Star Wars Twitter people kind of moving back and forth between the two platforms. And of course, you can find everything else, secretfriendsunite.com.
That's that. All right. Awesome. Well, friends, thank you as always for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and keep on trucking.
May the force be with you. Rex, play us out. This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.